After his wife's funeral, husband takes his lover to reading a will. But then, the rain had not stopped since the coffin hit the earth. Gray clouds churned above the small coastal town of Havers Bay. Waves crashed against the pier like thunder fighting to be heard. Salt hung in the air, thick and bitter as grief itself. He stood under a black umbrella, hand gripping it too tight. Thomas Weller had just buried his wife. And beside him, hidden under the same umbrella, stood Rachel Lynn, not his sister, not a cousin, his lover. She did not wear black, just a soft navy dress with heels. Her perfume cut through the scent of wet pine and seaweed. Lavender with something sharper, maybe lemon, maybe ambition. Mourners avoided them without knowing why. The pastor's words had been dry, mechanical, as if rushed. Beloved mother, devoted wife, taken too soon, he had said flatly. No one cried, not even Thomas. Not even Ava, their daughter, barely 21 and stone-faced. She had stood across the grave, unmoving, her eyes unreadable. Ava did not approach after. She turned her back and left first. Now, the will would be read at the family's old summer house, up the cliffs, where the wind made the shutters moan like ghosts. Rachel's heels clicked on the stone path as they approached. Thomas hesitated at the door, keys in hand, breath shallow. He had not been here in months. Not since before Claire's accident. Not since the argument about the letters. Rachel brushed his shoulder with her hand. Are you sure you are ready for this? He nodded, but did not look at her. The lawyer waited inside, dry and cold as a fireplace ashes. Mr. Dorman, thin as a rake and twice as stiff. You are late, he said, adjusting his glasses, voice like gravel. Only by a few minutes, Thomas replied, brushing water from his sleeve. Rachel sat beside him, crossing her legs, eyes scanning the room. Portraits of Claire's family hung crooked on the wall. Faces stared out from another era, pale and judging. The fire had not been lit. The house smelled of dust and salt rot. Shall we begin? Dorman asked, unfolding a thick cream envelope. Thomas nodded again. Rachel smiled faintly, leaning closer to hear every word. Claire's voice echoed from the paper in Dorman's mouth. If you are hearing this, I am gone. Rachel flinched slightly, shifting in her seat. I leave my jewelry to Ava, the emerald ring especially. Thomas glanced at Rachel's bare hands. She had asked about that ring once. I leave the painting in the study to the museum. Dorman's voice remained steady. I leave this house to my daughter with all its contents. Thomas blinked. Rachel stiffened. What about the rest? Thomas asked, voice cracking a little. Dorman raised one brow. To my husband, Thomas Weller, I leave one thing. He paused, glancing at Rachel, then back at the paper. Forgiveness. The room fell silent, except for the groan of wind against glass. Rachel leaned forward, confused. Is that all? There's one more item, Dorman said, pulling out another envelope. This one is for Ava. Thomas swallowed hard. Where is she? She declined to come, Dorman said, but asked me to deliver it after the reading. Rachel stood up, pacing now. This cannot be everything. What about the accounts? The assets? Dorman folded the will. Claire left specific instructions. No revisions. No contest. Thomas stood too, moving to window. Rain streaked the glass like veins on old paper. Something churned in his stomach. Guilt or fear. Did Claire know, he whispered. Rachel heard. She did not know. She could not have, but she had. She must have. That word, asterisk forgiveness, asterisk, felt like ice down his spine. She knew, he said louder now. Rachel turned sharply, lips pressed thin. You are not thinking clearly. We planned this. A knock at the door cut through the tension like a blade. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. Doorman looked up, startled. Are you expecting anyone? Thomas shook his head. No one. Rachel moved to the door. Do not, Thomas said, but she opened it anyway. There stood Ava, dripping wet, hair matted to her cheeks, eyes locked on her father. She held the envelope in one hand, unopened. Her fingers trembled. You did not read it, Dorman said softly. Ava shook her head. I wanted him to be here. Thomas stepped forward. Ava, She cut him off with a single glare. Then she opened the envelope, unfolded the paper with care. Her voice did not waver as she read aloud. Dear Ava, if you are reading this, then he brought her. Rachel froze. Thomas's face went white. I know what I saw in the study that night. Dorman sat back in his chair, staring now. I know about the key hidden behind the clock. Thomas's breath caught. The camera. Ava looked up from the page. Camera? She asked. Thomas said nothing. Rachel backed toward the hallway. What camera? Ava read the next line. I left everything to you, because you will know what to do. Thunder cracked over the cliffs. A vase shook on the mantel. The police have not seen the footage yet, Ava said. But I have. Rachel bolted for the door. Thomas lunged, grabbing her wrist. What did you do? She wrenched free, eyes wild. You said it would be fine. You said she never suspected. Outside, a car engine roared up the wet gravel road. Blue lights flashed through the windows. Ava folded the letter, tucked it in her coat. Mother never would have fallen that way. She looked at them both. And you knew that. Sirens echoed across Havers Bay. After his wife's funeral, husband takes his lover to reading of will. But then the sirens faded behind the cliffs as a police car disappeared. Ava stood alone in the empty living room. Rain tapped the window like fingers trying to get in. The fire still had not been lit. Cold crept through the cracks in the wooden floorboards. Rachel was gone, taken in handcuffs, silent, not resisting. Thomas had not said a word since. He sat in the armchair, hands buried in his hair. Ava watched him, unmoving, unreadable. He looked smaller now, like the house had swallowed him. Dorman had left without a goodbye. Only the sound of the old door creaking behind him. The envelope rested on the mantel, unopened since the knock. Another one, smaller, unmarked. Ava reached for it slowly. The paper felt thick, expensive, too new for this house. Inside, only a folded photograph and one typed line. The photo showed Claire standing in the study mirror. Behind her, blurred but visible, Rachel. The line read, Look in the cellar before midnight. Ava's fingers curled tight around the photo. The air felt heavier now, like the walls were holding breath. Thomas finally looked up. What is that? She did not answer. He rose from the chair, his limbs stiff like they barely worked. Ava, he said again, voice trembling now, you need to tell me what is going on. She stepped back, slipping the photo into her coat. You know what this is. I do not, he insisted, stepping forward. His hand reached out, but she turned. The hallway was darker than it should have been. Light bulbs flickered overhead, casting long, twitching shadows. Her boots creaked on the warped wooden stairs. He followed. Each step groaned beneath their weight, like bones grinding together. The cellar door had not been opened in years. It still bore the old iron bolt and rusted hinges. Ava knelt and slid the bolt free. The sound echoed like a scream through the empty house. She turned the knob slowly. It resisted, then gave way with a heavy groan. The stairs down were stone, slick with moss and mold. The smell hit her first. Damp earth, old wood, and something else. Sweet, rotten. Thomas hesitated at the top. You cannot be serious. Ava said nothing and descended. He followed after a beat, footsteps uneven behind her. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark like a blade. The cellar opened into a low stone chamber. Shelves lined the walls, filled with forgotten things. Jars, boxes, a child's tricycle with a missing wheel, and in the center, a single crate. New, too new. She knelt and pried open the lid. Inside were several tapes, labeled by hand in neat capital letters, each one with a date, all from the past year. One read, August 2nd mirror study, 11:46 p.m. Another, September 12th kitchen argument. The last one, November 4th, final entry. Thomas dropped to his knees beside her. What is this? Ava handed him the last tape. It was never just suspicion, was it? He stared at it, shaking. You think I did this? You were the only one with her that night. I did not kill her, he whispered. I swear I did not. Ava stood, backing toward the narrow stairwell. I am taking these to the station. Thomas rose, panic flashing in his eyes. You cannot. You do not understand. She froze halfway up. I understand exactly. You cheated. You lied. And she knew. Thunder cracked again above them. Dust rained down from the cellar beams. He lunged forward, grabbing her arm. Wait, please. I loved your mother. Ava stared at him. No, you loved the way she forgave you. He let go. She turned and climbed fast, boots thudding on stone. Back in the hallway. The house felt different. Wrong. The door to the study was ajar. She had closed it earlier. The fireplace was lit now, and someone was inside, sitting in the old chair, legs crossed, dressed in black. She stepped in. It was a woman, back turned, hands resting on her knees. You are not supposed to be here, Ava said. The woman did not move. The fire crackled, casting light across the wooden floor. Ava stepped closer. Who are you? The woman turned slowly. It was Claire, but it could not be. Pale skin, eyes too bright, lips parted in a soft, knowing smile. Then the fire flared suddenly, and the chair was empty. Ava stumbled back, heart pounding. Behind her, Thomas rushed in. What happened? She shook her head, eyes wide. She was here. Who? He looked around, breathing hard. Claire. He exhaled, then laughed, but it sounded hollow. You are seeing things. No, she snapped. She was right there. He stared into the fire, then at the chair. You know this house, he said. It does things. Memories. Regrets. They get stuck here. Ava backed away. No, this is not the house. It is you. Thomas stepped toward her. Just let me explain. You had your chance. She shoved past him, heading for the front door, but it would not open. The latch held fast. She tried again, then harder. Nothing. Thomas stood behind her, voice low now. You are not leaving tonight. Ava turned slowly. His eyes were wild, shining in the firelight. The tapes pressed against her chest inside her coat. And suddenly she knew. He never planned to let her walk out. Not with the truth. Not with the evidence. Lightning flashed again. And somewhere behind the study walls, a hidden door creaked open. After his wife's funeral, husband takes his lover to reading a will. But then, the hidden door swung open with a low, breathless sigh. Ava stared into the dark passage behind the study wall. Stone walls. Dirt floor, smelled like earth, damp rope, and something older than dust. Thomas did not move. His shadow stretched long across the study floor. You were not supposed to find that, he said quietly. Ava backed toward the door. The tapes pressed against her chest like a heartbeat. What is down there? She asked. Thomas did not blink. You do not want to know. But I already do, she whispered, and she ran, past the stairs, down the narrow hallway, floorboards groaning like their remembered screams. She did not look back. Thomas shouted her name once, then again, louder, but she was already pulling open the cellar door. Cold air rushed up like something alive. She slipped inside and slammed it shut behind her. Darkness wrapped around her like a second skin. Her flashlight flickered, then steadied. She found the tapes again, pressed deep into her coat pocket. Still there, still real. Footsteps echoed above, pacing, then silence, then a floorboard creaked near the kitchen. He was circling, looking for another way down. She had to move. The cellar stretched further than she remembered. Each step squelched in soft dirt. The smell grew stronger. Something metallic, something sharp. She passed the crates again. The tapes, the broken tricycle, then something new. A door, metal, bolted from this side. She hesitated, then unlatched it. The hinges shrieked as it opened. Inside was a room, square, bare, lit by a single hanging bulb. It swayed slowly, like it had been touched. The walls were covered in writing, scrawled in red ink, or maybe not ink, names, dates, some scratch so deep the stone flaked, and in the center, a chair, bolted to the floor. Leather straps hung loose from the arms. She stepped closer. A camera sat on a tripod, pointed at the chair. Ava froze. The tapes made sense now. This was where they were made. A whisper behind her made her spin. But no one was there, just the dark, and the bulb, still swaying. Her foot bumped something on the ground. She looked down. A pair of shoes, small, women's, Claire's, still stained with mud and something darker. Thomas's voice echoed down the hall. You were never meant to see this. She turned, flashlight trembling in her hand. Why? You already had everything. You had her, you had us. His silhouette filled the cellar doorway, but he did not come in. Not yet. She was going to leave me, he said. Take everything. She changed the will after she saw the footage. Ava's breath caught. You knew about the camera? He stepped closer now, boots crunching softly on the dirt. I found it by accident. She was recording everything. She knew about Rachel before I even said a word. And she was waiting for the right moment to ruin me. Ava backed into the room, camera between them. You killed her. Thomas stopped, head tilted. I loved her. But she was not who you thought she was. None of us are. You think you know the story. You do not. She reached for the tripod, hand shaking. You drugged her. He stepped forward. No. You pushed her. No. You filmed her last moments. Silence. Then he smiled. Not sad, not angry, just tired. I tried to delete it, but she had backups. And now you have them. Ava gripped the camera tight. People will know. Thomas looked around the cellar, at the walls, the chair, the red words carved into stone. I think they already do. Then he lunged, fast, animal fast. She swung the flashlight. It cracked against his jaw. He stumbled, but did not fall. She bolted past him, gasping for air, up the stairs, across the hall. He was right behind her. She could hear his breath, feel it, hot and desperate. The front door, still locked. She ran to the study, slid behind the desk, opened the drawer. Keys, Claire's keys. She grabbed them, tried the first. Nothing. Second, still nothing. Third one clicked. The bolt released with a heavy snap. She yanked the front door open. Wind howled in from the cliffs. The rain had started again. She ran outside, onto the gravel, toward the car. The tape pressed tight to her ribs. Behind her, the door slammed. Footsteps followed. Faster, closer. She reached the car, shoved the key in, turned. The engine coughed, then roared. Headlights burst to life. And there he was, in front of her. Thomas, soaked, blood on his shirt, face pale, eyes wild. He raised something in his hand. A hammer. She floored it. Gravel sprayed. He dove to the side. The car fishtailed, skidding toward the trees. She gripped the wheel, straightened it, breath coming in shallow gasps. Lights blurred in her eyes. Then the road ahead, twisting, leading away from the cliffs. She looked in the mirror. No one followed, but she could still hear him, his voice in her head. None of us are who you think. The camera sat on the seat beside her, the final tape still inside. She reached over, pressed play. After his wife's funeral, husband takes his lover to reading a will, but then the tape crackled as it started, grainy with static and low hum. Ava gripped the wheel, eyes flicking between road and screen. The camera pointed at the chair in the cellar. Same stone walls, same flickering bulb. But this time, Claire was in the frame. She looked straight into the lens. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. If you're watching this, Claire said softly, then I am already gone. Ava's throat tightened. Claire leaned forward, voice steady. You need to know the truth. You need to know who I really was, and who Thomas is not. Lightning flashed across the cliffs outside. The rain pelted the windshield like shattered glass. Claire smiled in the recording. Not sad, not scared, smug. Thomas did not kill me, she said. I killed myself. Ava slammed the brakes. The car skidded sideways across the wet road. She stopped just before the edge of the cliff. The ocean roared below, waves crashing against jagged rocks like thunder. Her hands shook as she watched the tape continue. I left everything in motion, Claire said. I planned the will. I made sure Rachel would be there. I made sure the papers arrived late. I wanted the world to see him fall. I wanted Ava to see him crumble. Claire leaned back in the chair. The affair was only part of it. He thought I never knew. I knew the first night. The lipstick. The silence. The guilt that clung to him like wet smoke. Claire's smile widened. I did not just record him. I recorded them all. Every lie. Every touch. Every whisper in my own home. Ava's heart pounded. The shadows in the trees outside seemed to move. Claire whispered now. I made the tapes for Ava, for my daughter, for the girl who still believed in justice. But there is more, much more. Claire reached down, lifted something into frame, a small leather-bound book, the same one Dorman had placed in the fireplace, but never burned. The journal is real, Claire said, and it is not mine. It belongs to her. To Ava. Ava blinked. What? Claire opened the book. Pages flipped fast under her fingers. Drawings. Photographs. News clippings. And a single photo slipped free. It fell to the floor. Face up. Claire picked it up slowly. Held it to the camera. It was Ava, but younger. Much younger. No older than 10. Standing in front of the Cliffside house. And beside her a woman. Not Claire. Her name was Eleanor, Claire said. She raised Ava until she disappeared. They called it an accident, but I found what the police missed. They never looked under the garden stones. Claire's smile was gone now. Her voice cracked. I buried the truth with Eleanor. I buried it so Ava would never know. But she deserves to know. She needs to. Ava stared at the screen, frozen in the car. Claire looked at the camera again. Thomas is a liar. But Ava is not innocent. She was there that night. She saw everything. And forgot. Ava's breath hitched. The static grew louder. Claire's face began to distort in the video. Ask her about the red dress. Ask her about the garden. and ask her why Eleanor bled for hours. The tape cut to black. Ava sat still, unable to move. Wind rocked the car gently. Trees whispered secrets behind the glass. She opened the glove box. Inside, wrapped in a silk scarf, was a journal. She had taken it without meaning to. Instinct, like she knew it mattered. She opened the first page. There was her handwriting. Childlike, crooked, crayon. I do not like when Eleanor cries. She makes the walls loud. Sometimes I see her crawl, but I never tell. Ava shut the journal, threw it onto the seat. No, this was not possible. But her hands would not stop shaking. She turned the car around. Headlights cutting through fog. Back toward the house. Back toward Thomas. She had questions now. He was not the only liar. The house loomed into view. Lights on. Front door open. Wind howled through the trees like voices lost in time. She stepped inside. The fire was out. Smoke curled in the air like fingers around her throat. Thomas was in the study, sitting in the same chair, face pale, eyes glassy. You saw it, he said. She nodded. You knew, she said. He looked up slowly. I remembered, he whispered, but too late. You were already gone. I tried to keep you safe. Ava stepped forward. From what? From myself. He nodded. Once. Tears slid down his face. You screamed when she fell. You screamed and then stopped. And you never spoke again. I told them she ran. They believed me. But Claire did not. She always knew. Ava's knees buckled. She dropped to the floor. Her chest heaved. Memories flashed in the dark behind her eyes. A red dress. A hand dragging across gravel. A shallow grave behind the lilacs. And silence. Years of silence. She looked up. Thomas stood over her now. I am sorry, he said, but you are not the girl I married. You are what we made. You are what she feared. He reached into his coat, pulled out the last tape, the original, unmarked, Claire's final moments. You should see the end, he said. Ava took it with shaking hands, slid it into the camera. Press play. The screen flickered. Claire sat in the cellar again. Same chair, same smile. But now she was not alone. A little girl stood beside her. Blank eyes, matted hair. Claire touched her cheek gently. You did not mean to, she said. You were only a child. But children do not forget. Not really. The little girl looked up at the camera and smiled. Same smile as Ava. Claire whispered something only the girl could hear. And then the screen went black. Thomas spoke softly. That girl never left this house. Ava looked at him, then past him, to the mirror above the mantel. The girl was still there, standing behind them both.